My name is Raleigh Rhodes. That is my real name. I run the engineering group for our special programs piece for CenturyLink Government Services. So I'm here with partnering with the state team, state and local government team, along with a couple of other partners, Blue Coat and Sienna, which we incorporate into some of our designs. What we do in my team, my shop, is we work with Department of Homeland Security, we work with NSA, we work with all the federal agencies to develop what my company calls one-offs. We take the requirements. My team actually does the translations and does the due diligence to help them define and get from here's what we want, and here's what we know what it looks like. How do I get there technically? So what we're going to talk about today is this enhanced cyber solutions, and what it is a result of about 6 or 8 years of the partners. Us going to DHS and other partners and saying, here's what we want to do, here's what we think will work, here's what we're seeing on our network. CenturyLink is a internet service provider. Here's what we're seeing, here's what you're seeing. How do we work together to provide a defensive posture that goes beyond what's already out there today? So that's what we're going to talk about. Nothing compelling, nothing sexy here. I'm not going to scare you. I've got a couple of piece parts in here. Just to, again, reiterate the threat environment. But beyond that, 3 things I want you to take away. One is that it takes the partnership. We couldn't have developed this by ourselves. DHS and the others couldn't develop it without us. So for me, as I was mentioning earlier, if you come in a little bit late, we were talking just before we got going, what a great position that you guys have. And I appreciate you taking the time out to come and work with the state and work with one another in that partnership. Because I've heard last couple of days, I was at a conference out in Chicago a couple of weeks ago on a panel there. We hear a lot about we're protecting the critical infrastructure, we're protecting the power group, we're protecting this, we got to do this, the financial sector, all these different things, the agriculture, and that's all good. But at the end of the day, it's the people. You got to protect the people, right? Those are all things, and I'm not, I'm all for power. I like my electricity, I like my internet, I like all those different things. But at the end of the day, we're protecting the people. Okay, that's the first thing we need to take away from, and that takes time. You're not going to just jump up and start working together and be a cohesive team. We've all been to these workshops where there's team forming, where it's storming and norming and performing and all those kind of things. It takes time to be able to get to a trust level and get to a part where industry's not saying, wait a minute, I can't tell you that, that's proprietary, and the government's saying, I can't tell you that, I'll kill you. Okay, I have to kill you if I tell you that kind of thing, right? And that's the environment I work in. So we've gotten past me being killed, which was awesome. The second thing is we've gotten to the point where we're realizing, some of this is proprietary, but if you'll help us protect our data and our information the way you protect yours, then between the two of us, we ought to be able to come together and put together a program that will help all of the government agencies, the .gov agencies. So second piece I want you to take away from is that this is not, nor was it designed to replace what you currently have. So if you have firewall, IDPS, you have antivirus, you have all these different things, regardless of who you're using to do that, and the schemes that you have in place, all the role and responsibility piece, all of the policies, we're not going to touch them. This doesn't touch that. This extends the perimeter into the network beyond where you're responsible, in effect. DHS and the service providers have come up with this to be able to say, we want to solve one of the bigger problems, and that is we want to clean it. We want to clean the pipe before it ever hits your perimeter. That way, if there's anything in there, if it gets by us, boy, it's got to be something pretty special. The way we do that, we'll get into in just a minute. The third thing I wanted to share with you is that this is available now. We've been piloting it for a couple of years, and we'll talk about that a little bit in a few more slides. But my job here is I'm not in sales. I'm an engineer. I like the technical stuff and playing with the toys. But DHS would like to be here. However, DHS is busy with furlough. And the other part is because they're DHS, and because you can't favor one provider over another. There are two providers. And so for DHS to come up and appear with me is probably not appropriate. But we're trying to solve the problem for DHS, for .gov, and for now the state by saying, okay, we'll go out, we'll make the state teams educate them on what it is, what it can do, and then they can reach out directly to DHS. So at the end of the slide presentation, I'll have a way to do that, a way to contact our team, because obviously we can help you get to DHS, can answer some of your questions on the technical end, and go from there. So questions I'll take throughout. If I use a acronym, because we're all in the technology piece, so we have our own acronyms. I work with DOD, I work with the government, and then I've got sons in the Navy that throw me stuff all the time. So if I throw one out there that you don't recognize, I could be making it up, or it's one that LOL doesn't mean laughing out loud to me, but it's okay because I'm in a different generation. But feel free to jump in and we'll try and get through this. Hopefully we'll get through real quick. This was originally about 77 slides. And so we sat down with DHS and we sat down with my security officer and I said, okay, great. We're dealing with various levels, classification levels of information, including classified. So what can we share in an open forum? So we got down to this slide in the closing one. And so we're gonna go real quick through this. I'll get you out of here early, but want to go back through and one of the things I want to make sure that I emphasize is that you guys have seen the threat. You've talked to and heard throughout the last 2 days, whether it's the guys from Tony Cole from FireEye and some of the other folks, including Blue Coat, it's here with us. Who's doing what to whom, what the advanced level is, what the tactics are, why they're doing it, et cetera, et cetera. You can see from this slide, it goes back and forth. It goes what the rationale is, and you can always get into the philosophical debate of, well, if we know why they're going to do it, then we could figure out, we can stop them. I'm on the other side. I don't really need to understand why they're doing it. I just need to understand how they're doing it, how they're getting in, how do I harden my perimeter. I'll worry about the why later, okay? Key things, but it's there. So this slide just simply goes on, and it's a pretty busy slide, I know. I think what we're seeing is, and Jeffrey here was in the last one and brought up a good point. He's seeing, and maybe the rest of you are as well, seeing a mix of advanced as opposed to maybe not advanced threats. So here's my proposition. So I was in a briefing with Syria, not with them, but about them, the Syrian Electronic Army, about some of their tactics. Some of their tactics are pretty low tech compared to what you normally see. So the question became out, and and the person giving the briefing was the government. He says, well, they're just kind of, they're low tech. What are you going to say? But I said, well, they got in, so it must have worked. So what does that say about your defenses? Got to strengthen that piece up. But let me ask this question, no right or wrong answer. If you're seeing that mix, is that because you have more actors entering the field that do not have the experience and are using the low-level tools to acclimate, to build, to test, to see, as opposed to the nation states who have got all the technology and a lot of the money they need to do it? Sir?
I think it's cost.
Is it cost?
Cost. I think they don't have the sophistication, the education, or the money to get the education. So they're using the most cost-effective methods that they know that they can do with the level of education and sophistication that they have. They're not engineers. They're not system engineers. They may be a couple people who have that ability, but it's not the massive.
Or flip that over and say, why should I spend more than what I need to?
Yeah. Well, that's
right.
Yeah. That's
why spend more than what I need to spend? So it can go either way. Either way, it's running the gamut. So where we would look at the threat picture, we would look at the risk. It's going like this. Instead of the threat going up and getting more sophisticated, just as you got the sophisticated ones kind of say, somebody comes in with a variation of a low, what I would call a low-end attack, okay? No right or wrong answer, but you got to cover from A to Z. You can't leave the gaps in there. I think we all agree on that. So again, the threat level, who's doing what to whom, some of the tactics that are there. Is anybody in the room not know about Saudi Aramco? I mean, because I've seen this like 5 times just in the last 2 days. Here's the thing that I always, because I deal with strictly with .gov agencies. On that attack, he had 30 PCs, hard drives. How many of you would have to be able, would take that out and say, okay, well, these 30,000, that's a lot of PCs. Would be able to take those out, throw some gasoline on them, say, well, those are total C-buy. Or would you have to go back through in every one of those 30,000 and make sure you had no information in there, no privacy information in there? Think of the cost, not just the cost, but even if you had all the money in there, look, think of the resource that had to be thrown at that to do the cleanup on that. You know, oh, I went out and bought 30,000 new PCs. There's a cost there. What do I do with these? You can't just throw them away, right? State government, you guys wouldn't do that, right? Nobody? Yes, no, you would? Can't? I didn't think so. Okay. Thought maybe there was a difference. Yeah, throw the gasoline on there, torch them, and go. Okay. Stuxnet, September 2012, the DDoS attacks against Bank of America. April, 320 plus gig DDoS attack. That is huge. That's not somebody in their basement. That's not somebody that's irritated launching their botnet or leasing botnet to get it. That is the largest that's been recorded to date that's been out in the public that we know of. Anybody hear about this one, the 23rd, about the Syrian Electronic Army spreading the false information? Look at the dollar impact of that to the markets. And that's where, you know, we're talking about the critical infrastructure. You look at that, you go, that's $136 billion. Wow. Okay, whose pension was that? Whose college education for the kids? Yours. Okay, all right. Thank you for contributing. But when you look at that and you take it back, you got to take it back to the people part, right? It's got to be taken back to the lowest level, which is the people. So again, I don't want to scare anybody, but I did want to include a couple of quotes here, because we look to the experts, we look at the folks that are in there, the DeWalt's that are in the FireEye and the others, CEOs that are seeing this for the rest of the other, Symantec, you name it, our CEO. You take a look at these things, but when you read something from Mike Rogers, and you're looking at that, he's got a different camera angle than we do. He's looking at it from the .gov side, from the industry side, but he's also looking at it from a different asset side. What am I trying to protect? So he brings a whole different perspective to it and a different camera angle. But it's being sold. He's talking about the cyber attacks. Here's Keith Alexander causing the greatest transfer of wealth history. I think you guys saw that in the keynote approach. But $300 billion a year, $1 trillion annually, that's a lot of money we're spending here that we could be spending elsewhere if we could solve some of this problem. The last one is what always draws my attention, and again, it's from General Alexander. You know, that's our future disappearing in front of us. So we gotta stop the bleeding now, so that we can move forward without jeopardizing the future. Whether, you know, you talk whatever side of the aisle you're on, you know, talk about the debt hike, talk about what are we doing, we're mortgaging the kids, we're not mortgaging the kids, we're investing it. I don't know, not that smart. But this does bother me, that we're not able to defend ourselves. We can get to the attack scenarios later, that's next week, but we can look at just the defense piece and what it is we can and can't do. And that's what ECS is designed to do, is to help you get a little bit further down that path. It's not going to solve everything, but I think it can help you very quickly and very effectively, again, build another defense in your perimeter, defense line in your perimeter. Would anyone take a look at these? Stopping the threat, challenge for every agency, IT department. Do you think this is different between state and local government and .gov? You know, the VA, State Department, Social Security Administration. How about private industry? Think it's any different for my company, for Microsoft or Apple? These are all pretty much stopping the threat before it gets to your network edge, guaranteeing the CIA for information systems. Operational continuity, how critical is that? How about preventing the loss of thousands, sometimes dollars of value, lost revenues, and diminished reputation? One of the things I always assume is, I know it's dangerous, I always assume that the state and local government and the federal government have the expertise, and I hold them to a higher standard, frankly, because I believe they have a higher responsibility. Maybe that's wrong. That's just me personally. I'm not speaking to CenturyLink or anyone else. I'm just saying I hold all of you to a higher standard, the .gov folks that I work with to a higher standard. So I believe you have the resources for the education, for the engineering, everything else. And so what does that do if you can't trust the people that are put in place at trust, you put in charge to protect a lot of these things? Reliance on skill sets not appropriate for the latest network-based threats. That's an education issue. How do we keep up? How do we keep pace with our staff? Here's what this last bullet to me is key within the private sector. There's a lot of this that I would like to see on my team move towards a plug and play. Let's get our staff out of the day-to-day tactical and aim them at the strategic. Okay, if I already know, because I've got Blue Coat, I've got Symantec, I've got FireEye, I've already got those things. They're doing these things. What can I be taking these two gentlemen? Okay, you're out of there. You're out of the firewall business. Go figure out what the heck is going to slap me in the head next week. Get out of the tactical, get in the strategic, and redeploy my resources. Part of that you can outsource to that technology company's part of it. You can't. You've got to be in there. You've got to keep your hands in there. But what if you could shift 10%? Or 20% of that effort into a more strategic? Can you get in front of it? Would we be less in a react mode and more of a proactive mode? I'd like to try it. I haven't gotten there yet, but I sure like to try it. Let me step back real quick. I mentioned earlier that we started back when I was young, and several mandates. And what I want to put on this slide's a little busy. But the top half of the slide where it says TIC there and moves into MTIPS, IPSS, and then down below you see the Defense Industrial Base pilot. When we put this together, if you look at the top of that, these are OMB mandates. These are not something that the industry came up with. So this is an OMB mandate that says you will do these things. So we'll talk a little bit more about TIC and the MTIPS in more detail. But if you take a look at this, that's November 2007. I wasn't quite young then, but I was younger. So that's how long it's taken us to get into the IPSS and the ECS. And I'll go into a little bit deeper detail in these. But it took building that relationship, the information sharing, getting the lawyers together, getting the privacy folks together and saying, okay, what can we say, what can we not say, what's going to be okay? Nobody gets hurt, right? We come up with a good solution. So as you walk through here, in February we had the TIC mandate. And what that, and I'll get to that a little bit more. Then we moved into an MTIPS, which is basically a managed TIC. Does anybody have their own TIC? State and local government TIC? It's a trusted internet connection. It is basically, well, I'll go through it in a minute. It's fun. And then eventually in 2011, we started building Block 3, which is a building block for an integrated solution, using ECS, using Block 3, and using the MTIPS portals. On the bottom half of here, we started back, you see back in 2010, the DoD invited us to participate in a defense industrial base pilot. What that pilot was, or what it became, is eventually ECS. But what we started with is, again, those conversations, that partnership that we said, look, it's not just the .gov that's under attack, it's our defense industrial base that they're trying to steal secrets from, that they're trying to disrupt, destroy, whatever it happens to be, that's given us problems. Okay, so how do we extend some of these protections into the defense industrial base so we can protect our supply lines, right? You've heard over and over probably this week or the last couple of days about you've got to be taking a look at your supply chain, right? How do you secure your supply chain? Doesn't do me any good if I can't get the parts I need for my fighter, if McDonnell Douglas can't do it, or Northrop Grumman can't provide me the parts because their entire local area network, their WAN has been hacked and is on its heels. Okay, so that's how it started. It's morphed into, and we've had more acronym than JCSSS, and man, can't even remember. We finally came up with ECS because that was one everybody on both sides could remember. Made it simple. But in August 2000, we walked through it. It transferred in January. Here's a key thing. In January 2012, the pilot transferred from the DoD to DHS, and that was critical because we were able to again add another partner to the process and bring in additional information. So what that meant for us is we were not only being educated by DoD, of course, and we were educating them how things work within our network, et cetera. Then DHS came in and they brought a different viewpoint, different set of challenges, different set of wish list, if you will. Can we do this? Can we do this? Can we incorporate this all into the cyber solution? So a key turning point a little bit there to bring brought extra value to the process. So January 13, we expanded to all the critical infrastructure. How many of you are familiar with Homeland Security Presidential Directive 21? Everybody, right? Got that, right? That was where the feds are going to do something, right? Kind of, sort of. Kind of, sort of. So it basically extended what we were doing and extended all that to the critical infrastructure protections. Whatever the .gov was doing would hopefully make it available to all of you in the state and local government, tribal, and within the infrastructure sectors. Finance, agriculture, energy, et cetera, okay? So everybody with me so far? We doing okay? All right. I got 6 kids that usually throw things at me, so I'm gonna turn my back for just a minute. Cybersecurity initiative, this is where we're gonna go very quickly through this. Managed security services, you all have security services, right? You've got your antivirus, IDPS, you've got your malware protections, you've got all this stuff built into your perimeter, right? What Networks with an X did, and what the .gov, GSA, .gov, they said, hey, we want these 8 protections, 8 essential protections, and we want them managed. And we want them managed by the guys that are delivering the pipes, wherever we can. So we built the MSS suite, right, traditional stuff. We then incorporated it into the OMB mandate, which is a managed trusted internet protection service, or protocol service, excuse me, which was the TIC mandate. So it's a trusted internet connection. And basically what that is, boiled down is that if you look at your agency, let's use DMV, how many portals do you have to the internet? 5?
We're connected to God and everybody.
10? Who else? Anybody want to volunteer? How many?
Franchise has to connect to the IRS.
Okay, franchise has to connect to the IRS, okay. Anybody else? How many internet connections does your agency have?
Be trusted
Has to be trusted.
and encrypted, et cetera.
Okay. Okay, so you get all your internet service from the IRS?
No,
Oh, well, okay.
we share.
You share, okay. The difference is with the OMB mandate, the mandate said that if you're an executive agency, mandatory. If you're not, you want to participate, you're going to take your internet connections down to 2, a primary and a redundant one, okay? The reason for that is because they were finding, they're doing audit, people were doing audits, we're doing pen testing for them, we're going, you got like 75 connections to 4 different ISPs. There's stuff coming in and out of here, I don't think you guys even know what it is, right? We couldn't find out what it was. So we went back and said, look, if we could at least reduce the number of threat avenues, right, threat vectors, we might be able to get a little bit better handle. So the OMB mandate that came back out for TIC was, hey, build a managed trusted internet protocol, have the guys that are running this thing, or build your own. So some agencies built their own, we built ours. We said, okay, great. Basically, everything inbound and outbound to the World Wide Web goes through MTIPS. Okay, it's also connected to, are you familiar with Einstein? Einstein 1, 2, 3. Einstein is an NSA device, and it is polling that, it is taking a look at that data, it is doing the capture, looking for the bad guys, trying to get in, trying to get out. Okay, and they're recording that, and they analyze that, and they pull what I call data exhaust from that for further analysis to help us, again, circle back around. Block 3 was not what it sounds. It's the foundation for building the cybersecurity piece. So it's incorporating MTIPS, it'll incorporate IPSS, it'll incorporate these things. We get down to a little bit further down, you'll see how it kind of blends in together. Intrusion Prevention Security Services, that is civilian federal government. So ECS is for Defense Industrial Base, for state and local government, all the critical infrastructure as defined by DHS. Okay, IPSS is for the .gov, it's for IRS, it's for VA, Social Security, Department of State. It's for the federal agencies only. Okay, DoD can use it if they so choose, but it was designed for the .gov folks. Enhanced cybersecurity, as I pointed out, including defense, banking, finance, and state. The key thing here is we've already got this built. It's sitting there, it's ready for your use. We are going to go on a limb here because it's being videotaped. I think we're better at getting the word out than DHS is. Just getting it out to all the different folks, because we do have the marketing. We do, because you could tell with that catchy, title there on the slide of, description of, right? That was sexy to draw you all in here to get you in to show you this. But we're getting the word out on behalf of DHS and as a partner, saying, look, here's what we have. Here's how it works. Here's how you can apply. Here's how you can apply to be part of the program and use it today. Questions, concerns, threats? No, we're still good? Everybody still with me? Okay. All right. Traditional, I'm not going to spend too much time on here. Traditional network-based security services. You all have this, right? This is all in place. This is kind of soup to nuts. This is foundational to all your networks, is my guess, right? If you don't have it, you should, right? Advanced networks, DDoS mitigation services. We were talking earlier, Orlando project and some of the other things we've talked about, whether you should retaliate, et cetera, et cetera. My company, or my company, any company, if they own the cell services, right? I happen to have an iPhone, right? You got your iPhone, your various ones. If the company or corporation owns that, and they keep getting hit by the DMV, and they finally get mad about it, and they say, I'm going to hit them back. Why can't I use all those phones that I own to hit it back? I can launch my own DDoS using all those phones. Or I can lease my own, I can buy my own, I can build my own. But it's something here, if you haven't accounted for it, you need to start looking forward towards that piece. It's just another slice of the pie, another tool in your toolkit to keep the bad guys out and to keep that continuity of operations intact. MTIPS, talked a little bit about this. MTIPS 1.0 being in and operational. We have, the Royal CenturyLink has 26 plus agencies on board with it now, adding more. DHS came back and said we need to update that. We're continually updating. So we meet with them and we say, okay, what else are we seeing? What else is threatening the agencies? And we begin to add additional features. We begin to tighten up perimeters for remote access. We work with FEMA, of course, and FEMA says, okay, I need to be able to deploy, and I've got, 80,000, I got 100,000 employees, I need them to work remote. I got to go through the tick. How are you going to do that? So I don't know. I just send it to my guys and go, good luck with that, fellas. I'm going to lunch. Extranet connections, custom extranet inventory mapping services. That's one of the things that, who in here, you don't have to raise your hand, who in here knows exactly how much of every router, switch, device, and everything else in their network and where it is? So we looked at it, and when they came back, this was an outcome. We looked at it and said, wouldn't you guys like to know that? Because eventually you're going to want to do pen testing, and you can't pen test if you don't know it's there, right? So a lot of the mapping and a lot of the networking discovery was done during the pen testing. People say, well, wait, where did this node come from? Well, I don't know. The guy just, was on a special project. We put it up. We did a whole bunch of stuff with it. Somebody forgot to take it down. I don't know if that's a good thing, bad thing. Could be if you're the one running it and you've got your own personal lab, but probably not a good thing from an agency standpoint because you got a weak spot in your defenses. IPSS and Block 3, Einstein 3 actually is protection for the agencies. Again, talked a little bit about this is for the .gov, for VA, Department of State, et cetera. Only one word to date, that's us. Protection measures, IPS is advanced email filtering, and DNS sync holding. So multiple agencies currently operational. Here's where we're going, additional capacity because we initially built IPSS much like we did ECS in a pilot program and said, okay, we can duplicate this, we can build it bigger, better, faster if you guys are willing. DHS was willing, said, okay, let's take a look at it. The goal is from DHS to have all full protection measures on all the agencies as quickly as we can onboard them. So we are now in a constant churn of bringing federal agencies onto IPSS. Let's see, full suite of protections inline. Right now we're routing through those pieces. The inline piece is going to enable additional security features, additional mapping, additional scanning and filtering. And again, you see the goal, DHS goal, September 2015, protect all the ports and all the protocols. Big goal. We're getting there, but boy, that was a big one. We said, okay, we're game if you are. Let's go after it. So again, go back to that partnership. It helps if you got a willing partner and one that's willing to take a little bit of risk with you and jump in. This is DHS, and again, I mentioned they came in after DoD a little bit and started adding and started bringing some new ideas and new flavors to it. So you can see from here on the DHS, from the National Cybersecurity Protection System, Einstein. So you see the block one was their acronym. Block one was a trusted internet connection, which we saw was the OMB mandate back in 2007. So you either buy one or you build your own. All of these TICs and all these things are built to NIST standard, and they are certified to at least a moderate impact. Okay, all the TICs that we operate are all built to a high impact. Okay, so they're all been certified, they're all been accredited, they all have authority to operate. So having said that, let me jump on my soapbox and say that's minimal compliance. Okay, you guys, you know that, right? When I talk at the other conferences, they're like, yeah, that's great. That was the minimum. That got you past the bar. That doesn't mean you're secure, right? That you checked the box, good for you. You got at least the right set of controls in place that we know of today. Tony was in earlier that was talking about some of the cloud pieces and some of the from FireEye. I was in an earlier session. He was thinking about how NIST is quickly coming up to speed and adding, just after they just did NIST 853A version 4, they're already having to upgrade the NIST standards to include the VMware, to do detonation boxes, different things. It's just an ongoing get out there and try and get in front of that. Of course, the industry is participating in that and saying, here's what we're seeing, here's what we're doing, and going as fast as we can. So block 2, managed trusted internet, and again, with a IDS capability. So we're getting a little bit more robust on the protections, and we're adding those piece parts in. And again, as you can imagine, this is all of VA. You imagine how large that is nationally, and saying, okay, we're going to funnel everything inbound and outbound through those 2 ports. There's a little bit of bandwidth there. So we've got 26 VAs running through there. And you can imagine as we're doing that, some of the back office things within the VA that's saying, wait a minute, we didn't realize when we did that, we would have to adjust X, Y, or Z. Works great, but we're going to have to come up to speed. We might have to update our iOS on this particular segment of the WAN. That's okay. They got up and operational. They're in compliance. They're running through there. Little bit of juggling on both ends to be able to say, okay, we were told you guys could do it like this. You can't. Okay, wait a second. What can we do on our end to help you get to that end state? Block 3, government provided. Here's where we think, in our mind, selfishly, we look at it and say, hey, you know what? Here's an example of where the government looks at it and says, maybe you guys could do it better than we can. Initially, ECS, IPSS was going to be done in our facilities and our hosting facilities, but using government information, using government hardware and equipment, government employees. They sat down, they took a look at it and said, wait a minute, you've already got the facilities, you've already got the network, you've already got all this stuff in place, why recreate the wheel? So let us move forward. We'll provide you with our information, and you've already got the infrastructure built. We don't need to duplicate it. So that was where block 3 piece was, and again, using the GFI, so you can see the interaction between the programs. ECS, originally piloted for private defense and industrial base, as I mentioned. Customers must be approved by DHS as an approved entity before receiving services. What that means is during the pilot period prior to HSPD 21, if you wanted to participate in this program, you had to be vetted by DHS and DoD in the early days. So you couldn't just say, well, I got this great manufacturing company and I'd like it to be on as part of this program. You have to go through it. As we've moved forward, we moved out into the ECS piece, and we've opened up, by presidential directive, we opened up to all the critical infrastructures. That stays in place. Okay, so as a state entity, you're still going to go through, whether you're DMV, your state social services, whatever it is, you're still going to apply for and go through the vetting process with DHS. Okay, part of that vetting process is you are who you say you are. Here's your your network. We've looked at your not necessarily looked at your network, but we validated you are who you say you are, and you are part of the critical infrastructure. Come on in. At that point in time, we begin to work with your IT teams and say, here's what, now we're going to get down to the technical piece. We'll do a technical exchange meetings, et cetera, and begin that onboarding process to make sure everything maps out. There's no disruptions in service. State and local governments included, as you can see, due to security clearance requirements, ECS is housed and managed in SCIF environment. Everybody familiar with SCIF, right? Sir? Oh, you are? Okay, I didn't know if you had a question. So everything is in a SCIF. Folks that are in there are all cleared to the appropriate level because we are dealing with government furnished information that is at the classified level. Contracted customers, those are the ones that have gone through the vetting process and have been approved. We will then enter into an agreement with them that says, here's the security requirements as mandated by the Department of Homeland Security. Here's your technical specifications. If you can meet these different things, let's get busy and let's hurry up and get you on board so that you can participate in the program.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, you're not saying that all personnel for the state and local governments have to have PSS clearance. You're saying that anybody involved in the SCIF.
I do.
Right.
Yes, not you.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I'm just sitting here thinking, wow, that would shut our government down.
Yeah. See, and I'm usually in the SCIF. The only reason I'm here is because they furloughed everybody and they didn't lock the door. So, I'm sorry, to clarify, yes, you do not. The question is, do all state and local government folks have to have clearances to the TSSCI level? And the answer is no. That's a requirement for the service providers and the folks from the DHS side working this particular program. Okay. Critical infrastructure being identified. Once approved by it, they haven't entered into an agreement for services. These are some of the initial pilot. This is not necessarily. These are examples in green. These are not people who are currently participating, although there are some that could be participating. We can't identify them. So, but as you can see, those are the sectors that were expanded with HSPD 21 that can now participate just beyond the defense industrial base. Obviously, the state up there being key part of that. All right, enhanced cybersecurity. How do we help your state cyber? This is a network-based, well, you can read it, inbound filtering and neutralization. So what we do, in a nutshell, is ECS sits out in front of your network. You don't change your protection scheme. You don't change your policies, your firewalls, your routers, or well, your routers you might have to alter because we do need to put up some tunnels. This sits in front. We take the government furnished information, we map it into our instance, we map it into our system, and it eliminates the emails that contain malicious packet attachments, any of the domains, the click. We've all heard about the spear phishing piece. The difference between this and a FireEye, Symantec, we're not dealing with commercially available signatures or commercially available information at all. The information is being fed into our system, is being transferred via secure means, and it is housed inside the SCIF. Nobody gets in or out except us and the government guys. And so it is not even, I've heard it described as security on steroids. Not so. You guys are hopefully providing the security on steroids at your perimeter. This takes it out beyond. So the intent was to clean anything and everything, both in the email piece and in the DNS, right? Inbound, outbound, to clean it. So anything that hits your perimeter has already gone through this and has been, and anything that is in there that is malicious has been eliminated. Make sense?
So, I mean, any agency also has, besides the internet connection, also has a whole bunch of connections to other private networks, to county, to state. Do those get also put under this umbrella?
They can. So if you'd have to join your sheriff's department, police department, right? Los Angeles, and DMV. So if you're both under this protection, anything that's going in and inbound and outbound is going around is being cleaned. So, but if the DMV says, I don't want to play with that.
So how does it work if he's a customer here and we are? Does it change the way we're?
No, you're both taking advantage of ECS. It doesn't have to be connected. And if you're the only one that takes advantage of this fabulous one-time offer, right? Anything inbound and outbound of LAPD is using the service and using the advanced detection piece. Okay? Multiple, let me keep going here real quick. I'll open up the question. I'm almost through here with my 75 slides. The multiple interface options, meaning that we don't need to, it's not specific to, we don't need you to have Microsoft Exchange. Whatever you have in place, we can map to. Whatever you have in place, we can mate to. That's part of the technical exchange meeting that takes place. You don't change your back office. The whole idea was not to change anything on your end. Put this out in the network in my environment, strip it, clean it, filter it, get rid of it before it ever hits your perimeter. Security services supported by 24/7. We obviously have a security operations center, again, in a secure environment that's handling all of the support functions. So in essence, at the end of the week, you get a report, Sunday, that says you had 75 hits. We stripped them, cleaned them, and they're all over here. And by here, I mean it at DHS. Not in your sandbox, not in your bag. We cleaned them, they're done.
And luckily this is free.
Well, close. We might have DHS might run a two-for deal. But let me wrap this up real quick. This is a DHS program. Again, we partnered with them. So there is a vetting process. I bring this in, and real quickly too, if you look on the ends of the table here, to know more about it, there's free handouts. This is from DHS. We got this to pass out. There's also a green form, and what this is a synopsis of ECS, how you get involved. It has a contact information. There's a green one here that is CenturyLink, and it also has an email box. And essentially what we're doing is we're helping DHS, because we're good citizens, not only get the word out, but if you have any questions, we have a team at CenturyLink that can say, will it work with this? Yes. Can I do this? Yes. Will it do this? No. Et cetera, et cetera. So there are emails there we exchange on that piece. But again, here's a description, an overall description from DHS's perspective. So they were worried about an engineering guy escaping and coming and giving you bum information. So I brought those with it. That's it. Questions, again, concerns, threats?
I guess the argument is you're currently paying your ISP something, you just switch your ISP to.
Unless you're already, you switch it there and then you would add this to it and it's piece there. Again, just to wrap up, two things, the last two things. One is on the DHS piece, there's an email there. Because they're out of the office right now. If you want the ECS email, we've got folks that are standing by that can answer the questions for you, and that have more time than we have right now to go over it. And again, technical questions, whatever you have. If you want to set up additional briefings where we can get down into the actual technical requirements, the security requirements that have to map to those technical requirements, because again, we're passing information back and forth that needs to be secured. We're happy to do that as well. Just again, trying to educate. With that, that's my presentation. I sure appreciate the opportunity to share this with you. I hope you found it useful and at least challenged maybe what you're currently thinking, and take a look at what's there. On a personal note, I was born and raised in San Diego. All of my family's here. I'm in Colorado, so I appreciate everything you guys are doing to keep the DMV, the Social Security, everything else going, to keep an eye on my folks, my family, my second cousins, and everybody else. So thanks.